Hey guys, welcome back. So in the last video, we briefly discussed about exceptions and exception handling in Java. Basically, how do we throw and handle exceptions and the various concepts revolving around it. If you haven't watched that video, I would recommend you to watch that video first and then come on to this one. Why? Because in that video, we discussed about the core concept and understanding the root is very important if you want to be a exceptional software developer and ace the interviews. So do check out the video if you haven't done it already. Okay, so let's start with this video now. In this video, we'll move one step forward and discuss about the types of exceptions that can occur in a Java program. So basically, there are two types of exceptions that can occur in a program. First is a checked exception and second is an unchecked exception. Checked exception is also known as compile time exception, and unchecked exceptions are also known as runtime exceptions. So let's start with checked exceptions now. Checked exceptions are usually caused due to exceptional situations. Now, what do we mean by exceptional situations here? Let's say, for an instance, I'm writing a program that processes the data read from a file on the disk. Now, my program is basically assessing a file that is present on a particular location on my disk. Suppose the file is not present at that location from where my program is accessing it. So basically, this would result into a file not found exception. And file not found exception is a checked exception. That is, it is checked by the compiler. So checked exceptions, as the name suggests, are checked by the compiler. Thus, they are known as compile time exception. That is, they are handled during the compile time only. Okay, so in case of checked exception, compiler guarantees that the exception has been handled. And how does the compiler guarantee it? We've already studied it in the previous video, that how can we handle an exception. So basically, compiler forces us to handle a checked exception. And examples of such exception are file not found exception, as we've already discussed, and IO exception. There are various other exceptions as well, but these two are just an instance of checked exceptions. So let's quickly see an example. Here I am creating an object of file input stream that takes a file name as a parameter. So basically, the constructor of file input stream, if we have a look, so this is the constructor of file input stream, and as we see, it throws a file not found exception. That is, it forces our code that invokes this constructor to handle this particular exception. That is file not found exception. Thus, we see an error here by the compiler, and what does the error say? Unhandled exception type file not found exception. So basically, it gives us a compiler error, and now we have two options as we've already studied in the previous video. We can either add a try catch block or a throws declaration. So that is up to us, and in that way, the error would be resolved. So let's quickly surround it with a try catch block. Here I've done it, and now the compiler is okay and it doesn't give us any error. So now let me quickly comment out this code. So this was all about checked exceptions. Now let's come on to unchecked exceptions. Unchecked exceptions, as the name suggests, are not checked by the compiler. So these are usually caused due to programming flaws that are obviously done by the programmer, or system errors like out of memory error. So what is a programming flaw? Let's say I'm a programmer and I have an array of size 3. As we know, in an array there is zero based indexing, so the indexes of the elements of the array would be from 0 to 2. Now in my program I am accessing the element at index 3, which is not present. So if I'm accessing the element at index 3, that is a programming flaw that is done by me. So the compiler would not check it, and this would result in a runtime exception. Thus the exceptions thrown due to programming flaws are referred to as runtime exceptions. However, let's say there is a memory leak in our program and it results in out of memory error. These type of errors are known as system errors, and they're usually referred to as errors and not exceptions. So under unchecked exceptions, we have two categories. The first one is runtime exception and the second one is system errors. Okay, so as we've already discussed, these exceptions are not checked by the compiler, and examples of such exceptions are null pointer exception, array index out of bound exception, illegal argument exception, out of memory error, and much more. Let's quickly see a demonstration of unchecked exception as well. I've already written the code. Let me just uncomment it. So basically, here I'm creating an array nums that contains three elements, 0, 1 and 2, and I'm printing the element at index 3. So this element is not present in the array nums, and thus it would give me array index out of bound exception. The compiler is okay, it's not giving us any error, but this exception would be thrown at runtime. So let's quickly see by running the program. We just widen it. So as seen on the console, the program here throws an array index out of bound exception, and it says index 3 out of bounds for length 3. So basically, this exception was not handled by the compiler and it is thrown at runtime. So this is not checked by the compiler, and the compiler doesn't force us to handle this exception, but we can still handle it. It is not recommended to handle such runtime exceptions because we should know that our application has gone into an error state. But if we want to handle it, we can definitely do so. Let me just quickly show you the example as well. I'll just place a try catch block here and copy this code inside the try block. Now I'll place a catch block and I'll just handle the array index out of bounds exception, and I'll just for now print this out. I'll say exception thrown, or the better way out here is array index out of bounds exception thrown. Okay, so I've handled the array index out of bound exception in this case, which is a runtime exception. That's not recommended, but I can still do so. If I now run this program, I'll get a sysout array index out of bounds exception thrown and not the runtime exception trace that we saw previously. So now I'll run this, and as we see, we are getting a sysout array index out of bounds exception thrown. So yes, you can handle any type of exceptions, but for checked exceptions, the compiler forces us to handle it. However, for unchecked exceptions, it's our choice. So that was pretty much it about this video. I hope you understood the types of exceptions, checked and unchecked exceptions. If you have any doubt, do let me know in the comment section below. I'll try to answer them all. I'll meet you in the next one. Till then, goodbye. Have a nice day.